Hey folks, it's me, Dr. Mike Kissertal from Renaissance Periodization. Welcome back to the Targeting the Muscle series. Today, we're gonna do squats, and I'm gonna talk about how to get the most out of your quads when squatting. Just a couple tips here and there to get you guys good and proper. We are gonna be using the Transformer bar from Kabuki Strength, Chris Duffin's company. It's a sweet bar and it's super comfortable. Don't have to use it, but if you've got it around, it's really fun. Let's get to the tips. All right, folks, first tip is to break at the hips and knees at the same time, or even break at the hips a little sooner. So breaking at the hips first looks like this. We tilt back at the hips and then we go down. Breaking at the hips and knees at the same time looks like this. Break at hips and knees. What you don't want to do with the squat is break at the knees first and then the hips. That tends to cause some knee discomfort and it'll put your center of gravity a little bit forward, reducing stability, not ideal. So when you're starting the squat, hips and knees at the same time is generally best. If you have trouble with some hip stability, break at the hips first, then the knees, and then go down. That's probably a good idea to set the squat up to be super quad dominant, but there's so much more to say. Let's say it in just a sec. Next tip is to make sure you have your feet positioned such that you can produce tons of force, have force transmission through your entire foot. That means heels all the way to toes, and be very comfortable with how your knees and hips are aligned. For example, if I take a very close position and point my feet forward, if I try to squat down, it feels really weird. I'm binding up all in myself. It feels strange. I can't produce a lot of force. I can't hit good depth. I can't get the quads to be loaded under a stretch. No bueno. At the same time, if I take a super wide stance, point my toes way the fuck out, I feel mostly my adductors and glutes being trained, not a ton with my quads. Something in between is usually good, and here's the part where you practice for yourself. So for me, slightly around shoulder width stance, toes pointed for my build pretty far out, but like 45-degree angle. And then when you dip back and squat deep, everything is aligned super well. You can stay nice and upright and really feel it in your quads. My knees feel great, my hips feel great, everything is perfect. It's gonna take you a little while to feel out where it's best, but what I'm telling you here is it's worth feeling out, because once you get your good position, you can just keep doing it and getting awesome gains. All right, folks, if your goal in the squat is to lift as much weight as humanly possible, we do like the power lifters do. We sit down and very far back, allowing us to leverage our very strong glutes, allowing us not to have too much a degree of knee flexion, because your strength in the quadriceps and in the knees is often not as strong as it is through the hips. So that squat is gonna look like this. You're gonna keep nice and tight, but notice I'm sitting far back and then I'm coming back down. My knees don't go very far over my toes, maybe not at all. It's great for lifting a lot of weight, and if you're a powerlifter, that's how you should be squatting. However, if you are trying to target the quads as much as possible, after you break at the hips, assuming your heels are still on the ground, you want to shoot your knees gently forward over the course of the descent as much as possible, because having a knee shoot far forward means the degree of knee flexion and thus the stretch of the quads under load is maximum. And that's how you get really good results. So I'll do the powerlifter squat again, just so you guys can see. Okay, that looks fine. But the bodybuilding squat, we squat back and then down and knees go forward. Notice how far my knees are over my toes. My degree of knee flexion here is really high versus here, we're here. I'm staying nice and upright and the quads are really getting smashed, which is the whole point. As you descend in the squat, and especially as you come up, we want maximum quad engagement. One of the ways we do this is by staying as upright as possible. If you start to bow over and dip, a lot of the strength for the squat comes from the glutes, the adductors, and even the lower back. That's all fine and good if you want to squat a lot of weight, but it's not super ideal if we want quads to be the limiting factor. So one big cue is to have your chest up, especially at the bottom of the movement. Having your chest up here is easy. Having your chest up at the bottom is hard. So if we take a nice dip into the bottom of the squat, yes, it's okay for us to be here, but we really want to be here, chest upright at the bottom. Notice if I do this, I sag backwards and I can actually not stretch my quads as much. If I'm upright, my quads are really taking the load. And if I'm ascending with an upright chest, it's really just limited by my leg strength, which is exactly what we want. If I round a bit, I can still get the weight using my back. That's not the purpose. So as you descend into the bottom of the squat, think just up, just up, just up, just up. Pause, drive up with your chest. No, it won't let you lift as much weight, but it will hit your quads like they're damn well supposed to be hit. Foot situation. We already talked about having the feet angled at the right width and making sure you're in the right stance to get a really, really good connection with the ground and feel your hips and knees and the whole body in proper alignment. However, let's talk about where the force is and where your body is front to back on your feet. If we sit back and we're so far back, we're not on our toes, just on our heels, what that does, as you can tell, is it actually pushes us back and reduces the amount of quad utilization, the amount of stretch, the amount our quads are going forward. So if we're back here, that's not ideal for the quads. If we're so far in front that we're only on our toes, we are super unstable and we are unable to generate a ton of force. And a lot of the biggest, strongest parts of our quads, the motor units, simply won't turn on and won't get you any good growth. This is why sissy squats are a fine exercise, but maybe not the best exercise ever for the quads. So what you want is to be producing force through your heel, through your toes, and everything in between for a nice, strong posture. That's how to get it done. Final tip. If you're doing all the stuff and it's all working really well, but you still could use a little bit more connection and mind-muscle connection with your quads, one thing you can really do to help yourself out is going to be humbling as far as weight on the bar. Notice I'm not doing anything here. A slow eccentric and a full 1 or 2 second pause at the bottom. During that pause, you're going to connect with your quads, make sure you're lying properly, and have time to get your brain to think pushing through the quads on the way up. So instead of squatting at a normal pace like you might, this works super well. If you're having trouble connecting with your quads, we can do better. So you can take a slow eccentric, really thinking about your quads activating and your knees pushing forward. 1, 2, up. Down, slow and controlled. 1, 2, up, just like that. Are you gonna be able to lift a lot of weight? No. Are you gonna have time to really focus on your quads? Yes, and that's the whole damn point of the game. Folks, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another exercise.